QB chasing.
G'day, listeners. This episode is proudly brought to you by our major sponsor, Gym Journal. Please use the code MATTER, all capitals, at checkout, and you'll receive a discount on your next purchase. Please find the link in the description. G'day, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Coaches Roundtable. We are joined again by Big Tommy. Now, there have been a few changes to the staff lineup, the roster, if you will, but we will be diving into these probably more frequently. Given Tom's time zone and schedule makes things a little bit easier. So we'll try and get these out probably, I'll say once a fortnight, given that your roster lands on a Friday day off. Gives us plenty to talk about. But yeah, ideally we're going to keep, we've just recently moved now. So me and Brooklyn are getting one out every other fortnight on marketing, business strategy, and kind of behind the scenes. We'll get one out once a fortnight with you and me, get into more training concepts, life, client management, that sort of thing. And then obviously we have the guests proportion of the podcast. So plenty of information coming out, plenty of stuff to do and listen to, but I'm joined by Tommy. How we doing, brother? It's Friday, day off.
Can't complain, man. That's good. I mean, I work for the day off, though, so it's always nice to have one sleep in every now and then, I suppose, until the late time of like 5:30. But no, good. Everything's going on nice and progressively in terms of training and everything. Work is hectic as usual, but we make do with what we do and just make sure my weeks are planned out to tick my boxes, I suppose.
Nice. How's training feeling? What are we holding now? 100, 111? I haven't checked your checking data today. Were you 112?
Yep. So obviously I got sick. We lost like 4 kilos or whatever. So I dropped down to about 108. As of yesterday, we were back up to 112 and a half.
Oh, very nice. Look at that.
So, and that basically came back in the last 2 weeks. So
yeah,
obviously just going to be a bit of fluid and stuff there. But we're pretty much back at what our peak weight has been. So only up from here, I suppose.
Yeah, good. I mean, we've got a nice little runway now. We'll probably see you hit 115, 116. Give it take a short rate of growth, a slow rate of growth. We've still got a fair while before we look at a prep. I think depends on how life is feeling and kind of where we get in that position, which will be kind of the point of this podcast. But yeah, I think sort of like getting to that peak weight of like a genuine 115, 116 in roughly the same condition. We pretty much held 111 with next to no supplementation. So we've got plenty of room here to modify, manipulate, push up. Food's in a very good spot. Body's still holding pretty well. Niggles are kind of subsiding. So all in all, we've got a pretty decent runway of growth before we have to worry about tightening up before a prep.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose it is just the niggle things that's probably been the biggest issue trying to get pushing along, just one after the other. But yeah, like I said, they're kind of subsiding a bit now. So hopefully we can start to ramp everything up in accordance with like our protocols and everything. And then, see how we go. I think realistically 116 is achievable. I mean, 3 kilos from what my previous peak weight's been shouldn't be that bad. Obviously in a hell of a lot of better condition than the 113 that was fat last time, but
I think we all enjoy using our previous halt resistance points as like nice indicators. Like I'm the same boat now. Like the 106 I am at the moment, I'm feeling like I'm like my hips are starting to feel heavier, my back gets heavier on the walks, but at the same time, like I look at the photos and like I still have a 32 to 34 inch waist. I still have like these proportions. I can vacuum and do this. I have like straight like quads coming out when I do photos. I'm like all these things where I feel in my head, like I walk and I feel like I look like this and I'm a fucking balloon going sideways. But then you get photos like, man, my mental game is fucked. Like it's positive. Use it for bodybuilding, but you look at it, you're like, I feel like I'm getting fat as shit. And then you see check-in photos, you're like, oh, okay, probably could push this a little bit longer. Scout's like, I've got at least another 4 weeks. I'm like, I don't know if we do.
It's completely dependent on lighting too. Hey,
Oh, 100%.
like I do, like I've had Nicole take a check-in photo, and she'll take it from a higher height or anything,
Yeah.
and I'm like, fuck, that looks so much better.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll do them just on my own, put a tripod there, whatever. And it's like if it's the sunlight coming in the window,
Yeah.
it just look like trash. I'm like, oh, fuck this. And
Yeah.
then if I'm like, if it's too early for the sun to be up and I've got my light on,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's not bad because it's just like down lighting and
Yep.
half decent. I'm like, lean or not, I can't tell.
I get out on the balcony, like if it's a nice natural light, the direct sunlight itself isn't coming in, perfect photos. If I go inside with the light on, terrible. If the sun hits it, it just shadows everything and looks like makes it look like there's sun lines that come out, the veins come out because the sun hits it, but then there's like points where it's just like washed out and it just looks crap. And I'm like, no, we're gonna wait half an hour for the sun to go. Just like I've got a line on the ground where it's like, no, we're gonna wait for the sun to get to this point and then we can take photos.
Just set up some contraption so it sets an alarm off when the sun hits it, and then
Yeah, yeah.
oh, quick, check it
Yeah.
first.
If the clouds come through quick, let's get it done. Otherwise, we wait till this time.
Yeah,
But yeah, that kind of like leads us into, I guess, a nice talking topic. So one of the things that we've been kind of tinkering with, I think, is the approach that I want our system to get known for when it comes to any client, let alone prep or just lifestyle intervention, is it's not just their physique that we're building. Like, yes, obviously, most coaching companies aim to drop body fat, have you look shredded, whatever, reach whatever goal you have. That's cool. But one of the things that I feel is failed to be assessed in that conclusion is the life around your physique. And like, so when we do our goal setting sheets, we assess your personal life, we also assess your education and career, like where do you want to go so that we can help you progress. Because in my opinion, the the idea should be that all areas of life should grow with the relation or relative to your physique. If your entire life crumbles and goes to shit because you've got a six pack, I feel I've not done my job. That's not how the matter system should work. And that's not us operating with the best intent towards you, because we're just then emphasizing that you should be focusing on the six pack and some veins rather than building a life that can sustain the six pack. Because at the end of the day, like if we get it, you have it for 2 weeks, your life goes to shit, and you're sucking dick for $20 because you lost your job and family. Well, it's not really conclusive of a good system. It's just that you got leaner. So one of the things that we're trying to really push, I guess, is our focus on even the general client coming through that wants to improve their physique is, removing the bullshit myths, taboos, and topics that people think leads to, a successful physique transformation. And then especially if someone comes through for a prep, is how do we build your life up from day one to be in a position where we can actually pull the trigger on prep rather than being like, I'm only coming for prep. This is exactly how it, you've got 20 weeks, that's it. Because we know that statistical problems that come with that are huge when it comes to most people's psychological problems, life problems, financial problems, relationship problems. Like it's not a sustainable concept. So for us, the approach that I feel we're really trying to build and get known for is that life should be growing with the outcome of your physique, not so much hindering because you've decided to build a good physique.
yeah, I agree. Like in terms of prep aside, developing your physique in general, or just improving how you see yourself in the mirror, I suppose, should be a growth alongside setting up the rest of your life. And essentially, it's like if you can organize that into, like, you have set goals in that, why can you not have things that align with that in general life as well, to just lead you in the same path, same trajectory, and set everything up to be a positive part of your life, as opposed to, I guess, if you have a negative mindset on it initially into, oh, like, oh, I've got a diet or whatever, um, it's potentially going to make other things like worse off in your life too, like your relationships and stuff like that. For instance, if you're a woe me attitude, just because you feel like you're hungry, you might not even be that hungry, but you might snap at people a bit more or whatever, just based on that. So I think just right at the start, it's just understanding your attitude towards it and why you're doing it. And yeah, like I guess understanding that it all interconnects to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think it's a big one, like mentally, whether it be for a prep or just a physique recomposition in general, if someone's just trying to improve their health, improve their physique. We need to look at, I guess, more of the holistic system rather than the individual, like that single outcome. Like, yes, you're coming to us to get that single outcome, but it's not just the destination that matters, it's the how that starts to impact the client. Like I can get anyone lean in 6 weeks. It'll be fucking hell, but I can get anyone lean in 6 weeks. It's just a matter of what you're willing to take, what you're willing to pull down, and what you're willing to do as output. That's got nothing to do with me as a coach improving your life. That's just I can get you lean in 6 weeks. But if we're trying to reach the destination with the best possible outcome, it should be looking like your life is getting better. We're teaching you how to sustain, relationships, social life, food circumstances, like going out, eating, being able to attend social events, not feeling restricted, whether it be a free meal and knowing how to handle that situation of freedom without feeling like you have to binge and over consume, whether it be, your work life where you're not turning up to work with an attitude just because you're slightly hungrier than you were yesterday. The majority of people, I feel, have such a low grasp on hunger cues and hunger signals that being slightly intolerable because they've had a drop in like 200 calories, you start hearing commentary like, oh, I'm getting weaker, my strength's dropping off, or I'm getting more lethargic. It's like you've mentally created that in your head before you even started the diet. So, of course, it's going to feel that way. There's no way you're going to be productive at your job or productive with your spouse or your partner, your relationship, your social life. Like all these things are going to hinder on the fact that I'm dieting. And, yeah, sure, you can get the result, and that's great. Get out 6 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever. But it comes with, I think, the spreadsheet that we're now using is like what we've called the APPP, which is the athlete pre-prep performance profile. Ends up basically trying to assess the traits, skills, and domains in someone's life that we think are important to have correct, or at least have a fundamental grasp on before you start a prep or before you start a really aggressive physique recomposition. Because, kind of culminating that point, if I throw you in the deep end of a prep or I throw you into the deep end of a very aggressive cut, and all these things are horrible, and you've never been in a cut before, and you have a new job, and your boss doesn't know what it's like to work with someone who's dieting, and your partner's not, gone from, you go through that, what would you call it, like the honeypot phase where it's like we do all the things together and we go out together and we eat all the food and stuff because that's what fun new couples do. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, by the way, I'm cutting to 1,200 calories for 6 weeks. That chance that survives, that's it, that fucking 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Like the simple, well-known term for it, right, is just getting your ducks in a row. But yeah, essentially, if in those scenarios, particularly that you've mentioned, like new bosses or new partners or things like that, I would feel like if that's something that you've just started, considering a prep in the first instance would be a terrible idea.
Mhm.
Unless it's obviously something you've been working towards and then that relationship or that job has had to have come up in the time that it has and you're already planning on starting prep. But in that instance, I feel like being forward about what you do
Mm-hmm.
and stuff is your prime um, is what you should be doing to like communicate with those people, so they understand what your priorities are, what is required of you, and what you can't do that they might want to be doing. So yeah, I mean, and it can happen in any time in a relationship. Like if you're deciding to a prep and your partner has never done it, doesn't understand, I guess it's a very eye-opening experience for them to be like, oh, okay, we can't just have a little bit of that or whatever. And you might get away with a little bit of this early on in the prep or something.
Yeah.
But at the back end of it, you're never gonna, if you want to look any good anyway.
Yeah.
And they're just, without experiencing it themselves, they're just never going to understand that. So you need to be able to see it from both sides as well, in that communication dialogue. As for a boss, you have an obligation being your job, obviously slightly different to a personal relationship. So it's like you have to be able to meet whatever deadlines or quality of work that you need to be doing. And if that is dropping off, then it comes towards your attitude too, though, right? So it's like, if you are just acting like a miserable, I guess I'll say that word. If you're just acting miserable and stuff all the time, yeah, then like you're probably not doing yourself any favors, and that boss is more likely to be like, okay, we'll see you later.
Yeah.
But if you've been forward to be like, I'm going to do this, this might happen, likely this will happen, this might tail off. There's many things that you can do to pre-plan ahead, to organize things like that, so your time is productive when you're at work, and like you've just sorted things before you know they are likely to get bad. Like banking leave, things like that you can take leave off in prep. My instance, I actually, because I didn't have enough leave to say take what I wanted, like at the back end of prep, I just took half days. I'm lucky I had the flexibility for that.
Yeah.
But it's like, so I could work half a day, I can be productive for 4 hours, that's fine. And then I had the other half a day to rest, get everything else in that I needed to. And that extended my leave out for an extra, like double the time. So
yeah, and what you've really just described there kind of really encompasses the domains and the skills that we actually talk about inside the spreadsheet. We have people assess. So the idea of this spreadsheet or this assessment form is kind of like there's 15, we've identified 15 domain skills or traits that we believe are like paramount to a success in the prep. And the idea is that basically you assess the score of importance, like how important is this trait to you to succeed in the prep, and what is your score at that trait. So like it starts to quantify a number for us where we can see the number of important areas, how important you view it, and how good you are at that domain in relation to the importance you dictated. And that tells us eventually where we need you to improve before prep starts. So I kind of use this as a prerequisite almost now. Having been through some of the clients we've been through, some of the results we've got, looking back in my own coaching in hindsight, but also looking at people that like, want to get to a prep. Now I can start to use it where it's like, even if we're doing a lifestyle optimization or we're putting you through a priming phase, we're putting you through a recomposition phase to get you ready. Like, I'll never just, I don't like the idea of simply taking someone and going straight to prep. So having that initial 6 months, 12 months of just getting them ready, getting to know them, getting to know their physique, their body, what their training knowledge is, nutritional literacy, building the education, getting their life right before we pull that trigger. That's what the form is really assessing and sort of saying, okay, this person has really poor financial literacy, it's not my job to coach finances, but I need to know, are they aware of what the financial costs are in relation to this, to the journey of prepping? Are they aware of the ability to save money? Are they, what's their personality like in towards like short-term gratification, impulse spending? Do they often come to you being like, hey, this week's a bit of a short week or a tight week, or this week, you start to develop behavioral patterns you can recognize. Okay, before we get to a prep, we've got to work on this because this is the price range that goes for preps. We start to look at, like you just said, with describing any dieting phase of a partner. Do you have the nutritional literacy to actually educate your partner about what's going to happen? Because if you don't have the knowledge, how do you pass on that information so that your relationship can handle the next 6 months or the next fucking 2 years, whatever, depending on how long you primarily build up to and run your prep for. And that's where this assessment takes place, is we're really trying to look at, okay, where do you fit on these scores as like a primary basis of information? And how do we build you up so that we can put you through those life phases? We can put you through a recomposition phase, know that you can handle it, and gradually get you more and more exposed to the extremities. So I mean, like larger bulks, heavier cuts, longer durations of fat loss, longer durations of growing. Are your ducks in a row, for the lack of for the sort of terminology? Are your systems in place that you can handle what a 6-month prep would look like? Because we've worked it out, 24 weeks is half a year. So do you have the capacity or the skill to have time management optimized, to have routine schedules? Because the thing that I really drive home to people is preps and aggressive phases of dieting or aggressive body recomposition doesn't get easier the longer you do it. It gets harder. You just have to make sure that your system's in place to mitigate the hard. That's why when I see people talk about like making it hard for hard's sake and like sacrifice and the grind. It's like, yeah, it is a grind, but if you're just making it harder to be a dick's sake, there's no extra brownie points for that. You don't get extra lean because you made life harder on yourself. You probably get less lean because you have to be against more stress.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So it's like, I suppose the purpose of having that form or that spreadsheet to start with and having it as a pre-prep phase, it gives us time to assess, like you said, the person filling it out assesses themselves based on how they think they understand it. And then it gives us a chance to see if we think the same way in terms of the score they've given themselves. And it gives us time to work on that before prep actually starts.
Yeah.
So that you're set up for prep in a perfect position, and the likelihood of you finishing that prep is way higher than it might have been before.
Mhm.
And the number of setbacks is at least reduced or mitigated to a reasonable amount, as opposed to if you had in the past, if you were having a bad week and you were unplanned for whatever reason, like you ran
Mhm.
out of certain food or something, so then you would just decide to give up on that day or things like that. We've established that that was a problem before, and then it's like, okay, so we can come up with strategies to minimize that
Yeah.
in prep. That happens to occur if you haven't, for whatever reason, been able to organize your week effectively. And it also gives us time to implement them like stage by stage,
Mhm.
right? We're not going to be like, okay, so you scored, let's say on 10 is great and 1 is poor, and you've scored 4 things at 1. We're not going to be like, all right, we're going to improve all 4 of those things in the first
Yeah.
week. Off we go. Are you just unrealistic, and people are going to feel overwhelmed and whatever? So I suppose this too is where that spreadsheet applies to like general population as well.
Mhm.
So it's going to work in that same regard. You don't need to be thinking of going into a prep for this to be helpful for you. It lets you realize where you might be falling short in your just
Mhm.
day-to-day life and why things might start to feel difficult. You're struggling to achieve any of your goals, not
Mhm.
necessarily fitness related or whatever. But it just lets you identify where you can improve and strategies you could. We can provide strategies based on that where you could like work towards fixing it to align everything to essentially be able to land the plane on a bit better path towards your goal.
Exactly. And like the thing is, like you sort of mentioned there, is it doesn't have to just be better prep. Often, like one of the things that I've found really encouraging with us is that some of the guys that I've had prep didn't start out with the intentions to prep, or ones that have now realigned their goals to be like, actually, you know what, I want to pull that trigger and I want to prep. They've gone through a system where they've got to a point of optimizing everything, and everything's been not perfected, but we've got the tools and strategies in place where now it's just literally ticking boxes week after week, and it's like it's monotonous and mundane. And most of my checking just revolves around making very minuscule changes, so I know that's going to yield a long-term result because it gets so proficient. And it's like once you get to that position, like sure you might want to prep, but they didn't start out wanting it to be that way. Like we don't push prep onto people that don't want to do it. But it's like if you go through that general phase of like, we've gone through the assessment and sort of look at these things going, for you to even get a general physique recomposition, to just get an overall fat loss result, the majority of these things still have to be in play. They still have to be like nailed and sort of ticked over. You still have to have at least a degree of nutritional literacy, financial literacy, stress management, time management, routine. What are some of the other ones? Like prioritizations, like knowing that your training has to be paramount to your week. Social life, relationship circles, your career and education, like all these things start to matter because, well, if you're fighting with the missus at home, you're not sleeping, and you're going to work tired and frustrated, pissed off, and you're only getting 3 out of the 5 sessions done because you're having trouble at home, and then you're struggling to pay because you're not getting a job, or the boss isn't getting you hours. All these things don't lead to you getting a result; they lead to more stress. So even at the general client level that comes and like, I don't want to be a bodybuilder, that's cool. We don't need to be. But like I always say, is we can take from the guys that get it really perfected and we can kind of bring it back down to your level and see what we can implement to make it better. That being like we get these domains assessed and look at you and go, well, we can definitely improve here, here, and here. How about over the next sort of like 12 weeks, we're looking at some of these skills to work on. And eventually, as coaches, we just basically give you a shit ton of tools in your arsenal that you can then implement when these things happen. It makes it a lot easier to get any result, let alone then start prep.
Yeah. It's just like essentially you need to understand your problems first. And
Mhm.
that's all we're trying to highlight. Um, it's a terrible way to put it, but your problems. But like, you know what I mean? Like where you might be falling short in
It's
your
trust.
in your day to day. And it's not necessarily our job to say, like, you need to do this better, but you need to prioritize essentially, okay, so these are the scores I've given myself. Um, I want these ones to be better at least, because who wouldn't want better financial literacy or whatever and whatever. And that doesn't fall under us necessarily. Like, we're staying in our lane in terms of this is
Yeah.
nutrition, coaching, programming, whatever. But it might identify to you, be like, okay, well, maybe I should probably look at having an accountant or a financial advisor or things
Mhm.
like that outside of the realm of fitness and whatever. But that then aligns your life a little bit better. It can make things like less stress in terms of that aspect of your life. And
Mhm.
it can then give you more time to work on other goals and aspects that you might not actually have to go and outsource for. And you
Yeah.
can just work on for yourself.
And then from that, they basically they pretty much cross over and become like life skills anyway. Like majority of those things, like once you learn to eat right, I don't mean eat right and it's got to be chicken and broccoli, but once you learn to understand macros, once you learn to understand how to eat a free meal without feeling guilty or binging or just stuffing your face, once you learn how to build a plate, they're skills you carry the rest of your life. Like learn to ride a bike, it becomes implicit memory, it becomes protocol recall, and you basically just learn how to go through that scenario and not feel bad and just know what to do. Once you learn how to create, a couple of bank accounts and know what ingoing versus outgoings are, you learn how to balance money. Now, all these things, regardless of a prep, just lead to a more successful life, which again leads to that principle we like to have, which is a client leaves us feeling like having achieved a better life than when they started. Whether that be like, I've got 23, 24-year-olds that have changed states, got new jobs, finished a bodybuilding prep, and now in the best career job of their entire life, and they're loving life and basically doing everything that they want to be doing, whilst also continuing to progress their physique. So, like, people are coming into the system at a certain point and coming out of it at a better point because they realize these traits and abilities and skills, emotional regulation, psychological adherence, all that sort of stuff gets them a better position in life, not just on stage or not just in their check-in photo in the mirror, but it teaches you, I guess, like those traits that lead to the successful recon and the successful place on stage end up leading to crossing over and almost be like being implemented in the rest of your life, should you do it properly, in my opinion. And it ends up actually facilitating growth and a better position for you in life in general. Where I think a lot of people have that taboo around bodybuilding or hypertrophy style coaching or physique recomposition, whatever you want to call it, that we're just vain dickheads that basically everyone just wants to take photos of their six pack and it's restrictive eating and not having any fun. Reality is, for the 99% of people that come to a coach, you should be enjoying your food, learning how to eat and make a better life. Know what, delayed gratification, goal setting, fucking time management, know how to enjoy your training and include exercise you enjoy doing, be adherent to a goal for a long period of time. Like all those things make you a better person, not just a better six pack.
Yeah. And like, we're not here to make things unenjoyable. Like, client is always at the forefront and they come first, right? So it's like you're giving us information of what you enjoy,
Mm.
food wise, everything like that. How you would structure your week typically, everything like that, to work out like how many sessions you want to do or could do, how many times a day do you want to eat, etc., etc. So like, it's not a set plan ever. Um, and I just lost the tangent I was going on. But basically, what were you mentioning?
Oh, you got me lost now. Fuck, I forgot what I said. I was like,
Yeah.
a lot of shit today. I did another podcast like 5 this morning. Fucking Americans.
Uh, yeah, no. But basically, oh, that's right. So work, like if you think about it, and you've just talked about basically structure to a certain
Yeah.
degree.
Mhm.
You think like no one particularly likes a 9 to 5 job, right? Like people feel like it's an outdated model, it's et cetera, et cetera. But there was a reason that that's probably been put in place in the first instance. It's like it's routine. People know that they got to rock up at 9 o'clock. You know, you got to be productive until 5, whatever, and then you can go home and then you work out the rest of your day around that. So that's not going to change likely anytime. So you would generally have a roster for your work or some kind of knowledge of what your hours are, short of running your own business, etc. But even then, you probably still set work times. You'd be like, okay, I have from this time to this time, I do work, I work on this, I work on that here. So it's just a matter of understanding what time you have in the day and where you can fit in each block of whatever it needs to be, whether it's go for a walk, train, dog walking, whatever, time with your partner, etc., etc. So, like, it shouldn't be as difficult as what it seems to be sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think people just need to understand that it's a matter of planning above all else.
Yeah.
And as you said, that will become second nature, and just how you would live your life if once you start doing it that way.
Hmm.
Once you realize how planning something out makes life less stressful, everything like that, you set yourself up for achieving more things by doing so. You've allocated time to each aspect as you feel like you need to based on your priority levels. And like, yeah, like if you give everything some form of time in a week, then at least everything will progress slightly.
Yeah. Yeah, like that leads to like just more structure, awareness, adherence. You have a better chance of being accountable. You have a better chance of being consistent. And like you said, like it's everyone's aware of the fact they're going to have a 9 to 5, whatever your hours are of work. You can generally start to stack and combine things to make stuff more tangible and feasible, right? Like we call it habit stacking for a reason. If you know that you get an hour lunch break, instead of sitting on your phone scrolling for literally an hour, maybe you can have a meal, go for a 20-minute walk, have your liter of water, prepare your pre-workout and stuff so that when you get to the knockoff in your day, you're not overthinking about what else you have to do. Like, oh, my pre-workout's already made. I can go have that from the fridge in the fridge at the office, something like that. Whatever it is. When it comes time to, when it comes to bed, it might be that like one of the things that I call I get clients to do is like their wind down routine. The body becomes very habitual and becomes very routine based. Like it loves systemizations and monotony. So if your body is associated with the fact that I know I go to sleep when, and you have this process in place, you take your melatonin, you brush your teeth, you have a hot shower, you put the aircon on, you turn the TV off, your phone's away, and you have no blue light or red light in your face for at least half an hour before bed. What is that signaling? Well, it's telling your brain that you're going to bed. Like you're like, I know when this happens, I start to sleep. What happens? Your melatonin increases, your cortisol starts to wind down, de-stress occurs. You start to build these systems in place where you go, okay, I'm ready for sleep. That system of stacking starts to tick off many boxes where you just become more effective and efficient in your day. If time management is an issue where it comes to like prep and getting everything done, like I've had a lot of people that early start a prep and they get overwhelmed with all this increase in tasks. The reality is, and that's something I've learned as a coach in my own growth, is all of those things should be in place before you start a prep anyway. And it basically just becomes going from fourth gear to fifth. And you're just escalating the level of intensity where you might have had a little leniency on yourself in the off season. It's like, all right, pre-prep phase, we go from like third or fourth gear to fifth. Actual prep, we go from fifth to sixth.
Yeah. And like in terms of feeling overwhelmed when a prep starts, like at the end of the day, there's probably not that much added. Like you would have been having like from us given a step target that would generally just be your normal day to
Mm-hmm.
day anyway. But it's like, okay, that's generally what you hit. Let's try and hit it at least.
Mhm.
You would have your sessions, you would have tick boxes for either hit veg and fruit or
Yep.
certain macros or whatever it is. None of that changes. Like the amount
Yeah.
of food might change and drop,
Yep.
and you might be given some form of lifts or cardio or whatever.
Mhm.
That's about it. So it's like, again, that's just going towards a mental side of things, I feel like. And like people are just like, oh no, I'm on prep now, everything's way
Yeah.
harder straight away. And it's like, but is it? Did it really change that much? You should have been training balls to the walls before.
Yeah.
Ideally, you would have been eating pretty much to plan anyway. Yes, you would have
Mhm.
had free meals and stuff, once or twice a week, whatever it is. But if you were eating out every day, then you probably weren't, you're probably not starting prep in an ideal position to start with. Um, so yeah, like in terms of that jump from fifth to sixth or whatever gear you're saying, like it should be a smooth transition
Yeah.
realistically. And yeah, it's just taking, this is my life now. I do all these things anyway. Okay, this is my life now. I'm still doing all these things.
Yeah.
Like it's not,
Well, I guess that becomes the difference between the system we're trying to build, or I guess get known, is that, in days gone by, it used to be, I've gone from 0 to starting prep at 100, and it's like I've gone from no tracking data and eating what I feel like and having a cheat meal every week, and I don't even know what a step target looks like, and I sleep whenever I want, and I come and go with overtime and do different work if I feel like it. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now I've got a 12-week prep with next to no food, high protein, 20,000 steps a day, 2 hours of cardio a day, posing 3 times a day. And all of a sudden it's like, well, here's all these things out of nowhere. With us, the idea is like you shouldn't be in a position where that's required. Yeah, you might have a 24-week prep or a 20-week prep or a 20-week fat loss phase or recomposition phase, whatever it is. It's because we're controlling the rate of loss. We're controlling the intended calorie targets, reducing only when needed, and then implementing strategies to boost that deficit. So like it's not going to be straight away like 4 hours of cardio a day. If I'm getting fat loss off you with 15 minutes of cardio and an extra 1,000 steps, that's all you're doing because that's what I need. So having those things in play first, like the whole, I guess it kind of really culminates the point of having the system to assess you is, yeah, it might mean a longer phase with the coach. And it kind of sounds like we're trying to make money, but reality is it leads to more clients staying in our system. We're not actually just turning people over constantly because we can only work with so many people and we want to get good long-term results for you as a client, not just simply churn and burn and be like, oh, we did 20-week prep. Where's the next round of clients for a 20-week prep? The fact is, like, you're coming to us with a long-term plan in mind is we want to teach you not to need us. And when you do need us, it's because you've got a great goal we want to help you achieve. Might be something like a rapid fat loss phase or a massive recomposition or a prep or a physique prep. But then by the time you get to it, it's so much easier. The likelihood is that in the long term, you don't even fall back to a coach. You now know what to do. Life is set up to handle the maintenance of it once it's achieved, and everything just becomes a lot easier. So it's kind of indicative of why having an assessment protocol like this, having an implementation process like this, and having that sort of that education and learning phase makes it so much easier to prep. Because like you said, it shouldn't go from that nothing to overwhelming sensation. It should be, here's all the things I'm already doing, plus or minus 10%. And that's it. Like we're going straight to it. But inside of straight to it, we're already doing it. It's just now, 95 to 99% accurate versus 80 to 90.
yeah. And relative to Gen Pop again, it's like you need to understand that if you're coming to us just like with a goal of losing 5 kilos or whatever it is, put on a little bit of muscle, etc., all of those things outside of what your fitness goal is play a part in that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're going to have an effect of how easy that goal is for you to achieve. So
Yeah.
if your sleep is poor, if your relationships are poor, your
Mm-hmm.
work life is stressful, it's all going to negatively impact like achieving that goal and the time frame that it takes. So setting it up again, like, and again, it is a time frame thing. So you're saying a 20-week prep, a 24-week prep. We have that time so we can set it out. And I don't like, you never really like to say, look, I can do this for you in 12 weeks, because
But
you don't know. Like,
yeah,
there are so many factors, things can happen in that 12 weeks as well. So it's just like, we're never going to set a time frame to be like, look, you pay us for 12 weeks, we'll have you sorted, you can go out and you'll be perfectly fine after. You might be, but the idea is that you learn, like, you come to us for whatever period you feel comfortable with. Ideally, you learn what you need to in that time, you establish the routines and
mhm.
systems that you want to be able to structure your life, maintain the physique you want to be able to maintain quite comfortably, still enjoy every other aspect, etc. And then, yeah, if you feel like you need to come back, you have the positive experience, you can come back, etc. Like that. So it's like, you might just be lacking a bit of motivation at some point, and you just want someone to kick your ass, to be like, come on, like, let's tick these boxes every day again. You've done it before, come back to it. And just someone there, like, making sure you're doing it. So, but like I said, again, we're not here to keep, like, you shouldn't realistically be with a coach forever. Like,
Yeah,
the idea is to learn
yep.
and understand, like, build your own knowledge, and then be able to
Yeah.
take that away and implement it to your own life as you see fit.
Yeah, and it's like, the important point there is not to think that, when we're talking about these extremes of prep, that all of a sudden dismisses the 99% of people who don't prep. Like you said, it's more so like those things are still required. Like an easy case study example is, if you're someone who's trying to build muscle, drop body fat, adhere to a diet. If you have poor communication relationship with your partner, whether it be male or female spouse, it doesn't matter, and they don't understand why you're trying to do it, or they don't understand what your meal structure looks like, and they're pressuring you to go out for meals, and it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Usually go out. I don't understand. It leads to communication breakdown. You're fighting. You're not really sleeping properly. It's not allowing you to train effectively, and you're not adhering to your diet anyway. All of that stems back from the poor communication you have in the relationship, because you couldn't communicate that, hey, this is the goal I have for the next 20 weeks. I've paid someone to work with. I really want you to be on my team and support me, and make sure that I'm on my meals, or my nutrition's accurate, or just let me know what food you ate, or like, how you built the meal out of dinner, or I'll cook it myself and cook you something as well. Those simple barriers of communication lead to very strong, like, negative consequences. And just having easy understanding, like that one problem, which was communication in the relationship, because you didn't prepare that relationship to handle a diet phase, or like a coaching phase, or getting, a physique result, is going to impact and impede your ability to get said result, which then leads to you being frustrated and then thinking that we weren't doing our job. The reality is, part of that system then is understanding that assessment period. Can you actually handle this? We need you to tell your partner. We need your partner on board. We need your friends on board. We need, you to be aware that you can't go out and get drunk every weekend to get an actual result. We need you to actually sleep. We need you to know those things. So, it's even going beyond, like a prep, just going through a general client who, comes really wanting a recomposition goal, improve body fat, improve hormone markers, get healthier, be fitter, be stronger, look better naked. What the fuck it is? You want to feel more confident when you're banging the misses. Cool. Whatever it is that you do, that's like that. The reason that you come for the goal. The majority of those things, probably to a lesser extreme degree, are still going to impact your result. And we need you to understand them and work with you to get them better. So, one of the things that I really like my clients to choose is, I want you to choose the important events that are worth getting drunk for, or worth having a drink for, so that you're limiting yourself to just thinking every event is a party event. There is no way every week in your life is a fucking party. Because if it is, I would like to know what you do for a job, because I want to do it. Actually having like that limitation of saying, this week is someone's 21st birthday or 30th birthday, or, it's our 50th wedding anniversary, 20th wedding, whatever. Like, these significant events come up, it's a funeral, and you're like, I want to remember someone and just be present. Cool. Don't worry about fucking tracking your food. Have a couple of drinks, but also just be smart with what you eat. Sweet. Like, you have the ability to do that, because we've taught you what those skills look like. Those things, like the way you learn that and the way you implement that, helps you through life and actually gets you on point to be able to step away and not need us. I think a lot of people kind of undervalue that benefit to just a general client that doesn't want to get, there's too many coaches, I think, that try to push every single client to be a prep client so they can be known as a prep coach. But the reality is, like, most people don't need it, but having those skills that the average prepper might learn are still beneficial to you in the long term of you getting a result and sustaining a result, and then being able to choose if you want to do it again.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, even like in terms of that, like, I suppose tracking food is probably the thing that people just actually have no awareness of in general. Like, outside of fitness community, I suppose, like some more gem pop that are just like might come to us, have no prior connection to
Mm-hmm.
a gym or anyone. And it's like, it's actually astounding how little knowledge, when you know what it is, like,
Yeah.
it's surprising how little people do know outside of this small world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's like just understanding that, look, if we get you to track or whatever to start with, again, when you leave, that doesn't have to continue being tracked.
Yeah.
You would ideally, while you weigh things out, eye it, see how
Yeah.
big a portion certain things are. Like you said earlier, build a plate, learn to understand like what you're putting on your plate,
Mm-hmm.
what restaurants put in food additional to like extra fats and everything you're always going to need to consider. So once you go, if you've tracked at least for a long enough period of time where like you can eyeball these kind of things and have a basic understanding, then it's still going to be easier after,
Yep.
and you don't need to feel like you're restricted and have to weigh out food, etc. Um, if you're like us, though, you're just going to do it out of habit and weigh
Yeah.
everything. So at the end of the day, it doesn't add anything to my time. I just put my bowl on a scale instead of straight on the bench, and
Yeah.
everything just gets weighed out. It's like making a recipe every time, right? So
Yeah. And that's really it. It's like we're teaching you skills that, in the long term, they're either going to, let's say you do choose eventually you want to prep with one of us, or you want to be a performance client with one of us, cool. Eventually those skills become stuff we expect you to do. Let's say you're happy and you finish and you step away. You got the results you wanted. You're with us for a year and a half, for 18 months, 12 months, whatever. And you got the shreds, you learn how to eat better, you learn how to train harder, you learn how to program more effectively, you knew what went into your program. You can then step away. You don't have to do those things entirely full time forever, but you know that now the second you want to try it again, you can just go back to tracking. Oh, I've tried tracking again. I've tried weighing my food, and I still feel like I'm off. I might go back to the boys for a coach. But it's optional because we've given you the tools to know that you could do it if you wanted to, and you've learnt these systems, these underlying principles, and eventually, like, some of the stuff that we do in the Matter HQ app every single day. I will have clients, whether they're successful at it or not, or whether they've already done it previously or they think they've got under wraps. Every client, I will make sure that I build up to their targets of like fruit, vegetables, water, and then I keep it in there so that if you want to change your meals up, if you want to change your meal plan, if you're on a meal plan, if you want to mix up your food, as long as you tick those boxes, I don't care. Like, you're learning how to eat, you're learning how to be healthy, you're learning how to diversify your food. It's not hard to go, what 2 pieces of fruit do I want? Oh, what 300 to 500 grams of veggies can I have today that was different yesterday? What 3 serves of different protein meats, protein sources do I want to have today that I didn't have yesterday? Oh, today I want to have some pork and beef and chicken versus yesterday I had fish, pork, and lamb. Cool. Like, it's really that simple. Majority of the time, one of the things I find is, and psychologically, it's quite a common phenomenon, people generally start to limit themselves to 20 to 30 foods based on a certain period of their life or the season of the year, and they'll generally stick within that structure. Once you learn about nutrition, you realize how much easier it is to prep food consistently. Week to week, you pretty much eat majority of the same thing. And then I usually encourage people to have diversity at dinner with a family, or, like, if you want to spend time with the spouse or the missus or the partner, add something that you guys can do together versus having a pre-frozen meal. All that's doing is just basically allowing you to have that flexibility while still being on routine. And you learn that skill, and you're like, oh, every meal doesn't have to be a fucking croissant or a bakery pastry, or a takeaway or some fancy gourmet meal. You can eat pretty consistent, healthy nutrition with good flavors and combos and still enjoy life, and then go for some variety once or twice a week.
yeah, it just comes down to planning your week out,
Yeah.
essentially. And it's like, don't let yourself be stuck in a position where you have no food at home or whatever, and you feel like, I have to buy out, like buy takeaway.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's just poor planning and setting yourself up to fail, essentially. So um like, there's no reason that should be happening. You plan out your meals, etc. So
Mhm.
like you said, if you're eating the same thing every day, it obviously makes life easier. because you can bulk cook. But if you have the time, which I don't, but if you have the time to make different meals for every day, by all means, if that's what you like to do and you're very much a foodie, it's still doable. And obviously, fresh cooked food can taste better than something that's being
Yeah.
frozen and microwaved and whatever. But I know very few people that can cook their meals fresh every time. So there has to become some give and take in terms
Mhm.
of how you plan out that week. And like I said, make dinners fresh every night by all means, and you can have family time, etc., whatever. Then,
Yeah.
and then every other meal is, if you're going to be at work anyway, you're just essentially eating it in a crib room or in the office or whatever. Um, then, like, what's it matter if it's the same food for 5 days in a row, and then you can eat something else on the weekend?
Yeah, and it's literally just like culminating all the points, the things we want, we aim to teach people so that they learn, right? It's like you learn these skills. Like to us, yeah, it sounds really easy and kind of nuanced, but very simplified. For the average person just starting out, sure, it's a lot more complicated because we've all been there. We've all started out and had to learn and get over the speed bumps and Dunning Kruger effect at the start. But like that's the whole point of getting in a position where we can just simply teach you enough, and you go, oh, prep again becomes super easy if I want to do it in terms of like the behaviors and the routine. It's difficult in the adherence and the energy, but overall it's simplified because you've learned these things already. If you want to go through a fat loss phase with us, or you want to go through a growth phase with us, either way, adherence and consistency still apply. So these things still apply, whether it's you want to be a general, like, I just want to change my life client, or whether you want to be, I'm going full ham on prep. Either way, assessing these things for the individual makes sense at any level and going, okay, to get a result, we need to work on these things here, make these skills more tangible, make these skills more reality or implemented. And, eventually the result just takes care of itself. So it's regardless of what level, I guess, of intensity your goal has, it just makes sense to learn these things, which is why we kind of made it part of that system.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's just establishing like your own routine, your own purpose, and like priority list on how you want to approach your life in
Mhm.
general, I suppose. So, um, like you're going to have goals in every aspect, right? You'll have something you want to save for.
Mhm.
You might want a promotion at work, or you might want to look a certain way. Um, all of those things don't just apply to this fitness
Yeah,
related
definitely.
goals. If you have way too much stress, you might perform poorly at work. You might
Mhm.
make irrational decisions financially, all of that kind of stuff as well. So it multifaceted side of things, filling out the spreadsheet. And um, yeah, we're not obviously experts in all of those other sides of
Yeah.
things, just to be clear.
I ain't here to make you
But
$1 million. I'll help you try and
yeah,
work towards it.
but it'll help you identify to yourself where you could potentially improve in those aspects and what might be holding you back from our point of view, achieving a certain physique goal or just a happier kind of position.
Well, yeah, I don't know about you, but I've always found the easier clients to work with, the ones that have life set up, they're easier to get a result with because things just happen when you implement them. So it's not even like it's not even just about your physique, but life just seems to be better when you organize the chaos and just have yourself structured and planned. Yeah, I know there's people that like to be in that sort of flexy. I'm going to jump in a minivan and live on the coast and travel up different fucking beaches. But I mean, if you're trying to structure your way towards progress, I'm yet to find a client that's been hard to coach that just had systems in place and that like things just got implemented and structured. So, just it leads to me a better life in all areas when you just structure yourself and actually get systemized and kind of implement these things in all areas.
Yeah, particularly in terms of physique goal,
Oh yeah.
routine is going to be your biggest friend at
Mhm.
the end of the day. Like, it becomes extremely difficult to do everything from get workouts in, eat to your macros, or like
Mhm.
certain calories, whatever, when you're having to be in a different place, time zone,
Mhm.
whatever it is, every time, different environments. you're having to track different foods every day, so you're actually having to like search databases to put it in, etc. It just adds copious things to your day that you then have stress over as well. So routine is key.
Systemize people. But yeah, that kind of covers it. I think what's a pretty decent episode on. I'll get into how we like to approach just structuring and helping clients set up, whether it be for prep or just a fat loss phase, whether it be for body recomposition, kind of just getting started. Like, I think people like to think there's going to be this rush straight into the balls deep end of things because that's what they've experienced on the coaches. But the reality is, like, there's probably going to be a learning phase where we build you up to have these skills, develop these things. And the ironic part is that life, your result comes with the changes. So, getting into more structured nutrition, like implementing fruit, vegetables, high protein. Oh, guess what? You're fuller, you're more satiated, you have a higher protein count, so you have probably less body fat. You're recovering better, so you train harder and you can train more efficiently and you build more muscle. Crazy. All that came from learning a bit better about nutrition, structuring consistent meal timing, and going to sleep. So, it's like these things accompany each other or are byproducts of. Whereas I think a lot of people just go straight in and just go on a meal plan for 12 weeks, cut my food, fuck me up. It's like, yeah, that works. But in 12 weeks plus past that, statistically, you're probably going to be fatter than what you were when you started.
Yeah. And there's that, there's a video that goes around where some guy says that like dieting or whatever doesn't work. And it's like, statistically speaking, in 12 weeks, you're going to be worse off than what you were. And like, it's like you just said, yes, that's the statistic there. That's not saying that dieting and losing weight doesn't work. It's the method that you use to get there.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of, ticks the boxes, cover that sort of area that I want to dive into, get people a bit more understanding of how we kind of approach that aspect for every client rather than just, just about prep clients. Like, yeah, it does get a bit more intense, but as we said, the intensity scales in relation to the goal, right? Like if you just want to be generally leaner and a bit healthier, obviously you're going to be 100% day in, day out. But if it's time to get on stage, you're 100% day in, day out. So yeah, it just kind of gives people a relative scale, I guess, of how we approach it from every angle. But guys, don't forget that there are coaching spots available either with myself and Tom that are still going. So if you do want to change your life, improve your physique, learn more about training, nutrition, performance, book in a free consult, have a free chat. Let's figure out how we can get you across the line. And if you are keen to prep, remember we are looking for at least 12 months ahead of time. Anyone promising you a 12-week prep is doing you a disservice. The reality is, to get the best chance to get on stage, you need at least a year ahead of where you're going to be.
Definitely need time to grow muscle before you decide to take all the fat away.
No, bro, just start a cut straight away and get on stage and you'll be fine.
Yep.
All right, see you.